I don't think I'd be where I am today. So I can't say that somebody who hasn't been there can never help, but it can make it a roadblock if they haven't been there. So my experience does help my job, but it is possible for people who haven't lived the experiences to still be able to help out just from having it. It all depends on the individual.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it.
It depends on the person, because you can have somebody, Ryan, like you said, that
Storm.
Okay. Well, you
we'll
call
be
me
in
Anthony.
the parking lot.
Y'all about to fight over names? Do we got to call Wilco's back? Or?
I like to take advice from pretty much both angles.
Yeah.
You know,
I do too. I like I said, I like a fresh set of eyes and a fresh thought process that can see things from the outside instead of the inside. I like having both of them, but I definitely like that outside perspective sometimes, because sometimes somebody that's been through it, they kind of have that tunnel vision on this is the only way it happens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes I need to see multiple perspectives and have some options that I can run through my own mind and figure out what's best for me.
So now you've worked with people who were just that just went to school, and you've worked with people who lived experience too.
Not necessarily. When I was in the hospital for those few weeks, it was pretty much a lot of professional people, a lot of people that actually went to school, and they did give me a lot of good advice. But on the other hand, like yourself, you've been through that, and you gave me a lot of good advice too. So
it's not always. Sometimes it's just down to the person and what their true intent is in the situation.
True. It also comes down to like how the message is delivered as well.
Absolutely, delivery is 100% of everything.
Oh yeah.
If it doesn't seem like it's coming from a pure spot, it's usually in one ear and out the other.
Agreed.
Because I could have gone through the situation and still be a dickhead and talk to you like a dickhead, and I could be saying the same thing that Tony's saying, but he says it with kindness and from a pure spot. But I say it when I'm being sarcastic and being an asshole. It's the same message, but it's got a mixed signal. You know what I'm saying? And it gets received differently.
I agree.
Because I've had counselors like that in techs and rehabs that have been through the process, but they've come out on the other side with like no humility, and it's all ego. And they're telling me the same thing that like other people are telling me, but I don't hear it because they're being dicks about it when they're telling me.
See, it's hard for me to listen to people like that. When they start talking, all I can picture is me Nancy Kerrigan them with the ankle.
Right,
like,
right.
Bam!
Who took the knee better? So, talking about taking knees, you know what I'm saying? No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's absolutely, it's happened more than once in my life. I've even dealt with that shit in like high school, coming from like certain coaches and stuff. Maybe even some teachers. I had a teacher one time ask me if my parents were ever going to come in for a parent-teacher conference, because he wanted specifically just so he could tell them that he thought I was on drugs.
Were you?
I mean, I was smoking a lot of weed at that point.
Were you?
But like little did he know is like I was smoking weed with my parents, so like he could have said whatever he wanted at that point. But like ultimately, like what he was trying to do and tell me at that time, and I didn't understand it until now, is that like I was fucking my life up early on. But I didn't see it because to me at the time he was being judgmental and he was being like sarcastic in the way he was delivering the message. But I can see now like where he was just trying to be honest with me.
I want to branch this off a little bit.
Go ahead.
Do you think that? Let me change my wording. How do you think that your parents allowing you to smoke weed with them affected you?
It affected everything about my life. Talking about learned behaviors, right? So like both my parents are using addicts, right? My mom has been clean now about 3 years, a little over 3 years. My dad passed away, unfortunately, when I was about 24. He was hit by a car, which is mind-blowing that I thought, drugs would end up killing him, but it was actually a car while he was walking down the road. But anyway, they taught me, like, early on, like, how to survive. They didn't teach me how to live. They taught me how to survive. You know what I'm saying? So, like...
Don't have sex.
The things... No, that was encouraged too, to be honest with you. The whole thing, everything about the party lifestyle was encouraged in my household. Like, every bit of it. The drinking, the drugging, the women, the lying, the cheating, like all that shit was like instilled in me. And ultimately that like allowed me to keep my active addiction going for like over a decade. You know, because I learned how to survive in that environment. And that's exactly what they taught me to do. They taught me how to like use the system to like pay for my housing and my food, so like the money that I did make when I could keep a job went to whatever I wanted to spend it on versus what I had to spend it on. You know what I'm saying? And I could give examples all day long of like how this happened, but ultimately what it did for me was like it turned into this. It was like do this or else, right? And then it turned into fear and people pleasing, which ultimately resulted in me being comfortable in my own shit and not willing to deal with it, right? Because of fear of repercussion and judgment, and because like I've told you guys before, like my views as what a man was very fucked up from a very young age. I wasn't allowed to show emotions. I wasn't allowed to be vulnerable at any point in time in my life. I shouldn't talk about how I'm feeling inside. And that ultimately was all learned from my dad. When we're children, we're sponges. All the information that spills out from our parents, we soak the fuck up, right? We soak it all up, and we internalize that shit, and we do it without even thinking about it.
And we turn it into whatever our brains turn it into.
Exactly. And my thought process was always different. I always felt like it was different than other people. So when I'm taking in this information and I'm interpreting it to myself and applying it to my life, it turned into this whole other monster that developed.
So parents that think you're doing your kids a favor by giving them a safe place to smoke weed, take it from me and Nick, you're fucking them up in the future.
You're fucking them up.
Seriously though, like my mom always pushed the I'd rather see you smoke weed than drink, which I understand as like a damage control point. Maybe she thought that like there was no way she was going to be able to stop me, so let me just give him what I think is safer.
Right.
But in the end, like you said, like it really just helped me be comfortable with the chaos, and it really set me up for having a successful addiction. Like
when I was 18, I was dating this girl, and she lived almost across the street from like where I worked, and her neighbor, she was good friends with the neighbor girl and all this stuff. So we're hanging out the one day, and I had to go leave for work, but I was out of cigarettes, and I asked this girl's mom for a cigarette, and she carded me to give me a cigarette to make sure I was 18 years old. 2 weeks later, we're at a birthday party for her 16-year-old daughter where she supplied alcohol for us. Didn't card any of us for this alcohol. She went out and willingly bought this alcohol. And I was like, wait a minute. You're going to let me and my girlfriend and your daughter, who's 16 years old, I was 18 at the time, my girlfriend was 18 at the time, you're going to willingly let us just sit here and drink alcohol. And her thought process was, oh, alcohol is safer than cigarettes. That was literally her thought process.
How old were you?
I was 18 at the time.
All right.
Right. Talk about learned behaviors.
What do you say, Storm? What are learned behaviors that you feel came from when you were younger that linger around now that are kind of harmful? Or even things that you've shut out that you realize.
Things that I've pretty much learned. I raised myself pretty much. I was able to just go out and just do whatever I want, and I didn't really get a phone call and be like, hey, when you coming home, or hey, where you been at, or any discipline in my house. I was pretty much on my own. I was free. If I got in trouble and the cops were called or the cops brought me home, it really wasn't like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Why did you do that? It was just my mom didn't really care.
Gotcha. I mean, my mom cared, but I think that she just gave me the freedom to make my own mistakes because she didn't maybe know how to be a parent. And I don't
Some
wanna
people don't.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying that my mom was bad in any way, shape, or form because I love my mother. She did everything that she could with all the resources that she had.
She did the best she could with what she had.
And what she knew. Like,
right.
And we're coming into a different age now where we learn different things. So, like, I feel like I was starting to bash my mother, and I don't want that to be a thing.
Yeah.
Because that is in no way it. But
I feel the same way about it. I feel the same way with my parents. Like, I used to hold, like, this huge resentment towards them. Like, they're the reason that I'm fucked up now. But, like, I had to learn, like, they did what they knew how to do, and they taught me what they knew how to do. You know what I'm saying? And at some point, I became a grown-ass man, and I had to make my own decisions. And I chose not to fix what was wrong in my life at that time.
So then
Yeah.
shit must have been just even harder for you. You said that, like, your parents kind of just didn't care. Like, they were just kind of like, go do your thing.
No, they didn't really. No, not at all.
That's
So my parents wanted, like, they had intentions of being good parents. So, like, they would get pissed off and punish me for things that, like if I didn't do my homework. Like, so I failed, like, 8th grade math one time and had to take summer school, but I was grounded for the entire summer because I didn't do homework that year, right? But then, like, a couple weeks after that, I got, like, busted shoplifting, and I sat down and smoked a joint with my dad in celebration for getting, like, my first charge. You know what I'm saying?
I think
So,
the
like,
best form of experience is, I'm kind of glad I wasn't. My parents were. My dad passed away and he was never there, but my mom really didn't give a shit. But it made me who I am today. So all my life lessons, I pretty much know what's going to happen if I do it.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
And that's the best form of how you learn is because you've been there, you've done that. And a lot of people really don't take advice like that. Like, I try to teach my stepson a lot of things of what I went through. And, hey, don't do that. This is going to happen. He doesn't know because he never been through that.
Right.
So the best form is pretty much to go through it yourself, to learn it and, the consequences. Suffer the consequences.
And sometimes you got to teach yourself things, too. So, like, one of the things that I learned as a kid that was, like, self-taught was, like, when I didn't have something, I just took it. I remember being in, like, 7th grade and not
hiding
having
all my shit.
Yeah, hide it all because I'm taking it straight to the pawn shop. But I remember being in, like, 6th and 7th grade and not, like, having, like, the Tech Deck finger skateboards that everybody had. And I would go to Walmart and steal it because I knew my parents weren't going to buy it for me. And I didn't have a job at that time. I was, like, 12 years old. But I wanted them, and I wanted to fit in, so I went to Walmart, and I stole the fucking finger Tech Decks, and I stole the yo-yos and all the bullshit that was cool when I was in middle school, Self-taught. But
Yeah,
still
I mean,
a learned behavior. It came from that survival mode that my parents preached and taught.
I never stole anything. I always really worked for stuff. I went to a cornfield, picked corn, took it on my block, and sold 5 for $1.
So you,
yes.
So you stole.
I was
So
a hustler.
So you stole
I
corn.
stole corn from
So
a cornfield and went and sold it.
Why the fuck is he on the show? No, I'm
It
just
was
playing.
it was probably like corn from like feed, but I sold it as fucking sweet corn.
That's
I don't know
awesome.
how it tasted.
I'm gonna tell you right now, it doesn't
Because
taste good.
There's a difference between feed corn and regular corn that
There
you
is.
can eat,
There is.
and it probably was feed corn. But I made some good money, and a lot of things. My parents had my mom. We had like a block sale. It was like everybody on the block had a yard sale, so I would have like computer monitors and like old shit that I just sold, that's the way I made my money.
Can you imagine Storm going door to door selling feed corn?
I did that, and
neighborhood kid's at the door again. He's got that feed.
and another
Go away. Should I buy some more?
and there was one guy that used to buy like screen windows, like storm windows.
Yeah.
He would buy the glass, and he would make stuff with it or something, but he would buy it for $1.
So you used to go around and rob all your neighbor's storm doors.
So no, this is
that's what I would've
did.
done.
I found out about it, and I took my windows out of my house, and and he, like, when you go to his house in his backyard, he would have all the windows out in his backyard. So I would go there at nighttime, steal the windows, and bring them back to him.
And then sell them again. That's
Sell 'em
genius.
again.
That's genius.
And another story is my mom she worked in this building, and the place on the first floor, the people were never there. The receptionist was never there, and they used to have a box where they sell the candy. You just put your money in there, and you take the candy. I used to go in there, and nobody was there. I used to take the money and the candy. But there was ways that I got,
right.
all in all, if I would have got caught for having stuff, I would have been in jail. But
If
I
I
mean, you
would have
gotta
got
do-
caught for half of the shit I did, I'd probably still be in jail.
I mean,
Right?
yeah.
I actually just had this conversation the other day with my girlfriend, and the reason why it came up is because I'm like 3 weeks away from getting off parole, and
Right. Yeah.
It's the first time I've been like it'll be the first time I've been unsupervised from the state of Pennsylvania in like 8 years.